Hi there and welcome to Journey Through to the Centre of the Earth. This is activity 4 for year 9. And in this activity we're going to look at what happens when oceanic plates are pulled apart. Okay, so as we know that the whole of the Earth's crust is made up of a variety of different plates and they're under the influence of convection currents. Now remember that the convection currents come from the idea that magma is heated at the core, where it's around about 5,000 degrees Celsius, and becomes less dense, rises to the surface, and then it's trapped by the actual plates. So it moves across the surface of the plates underneath them, which generates friction, and that friction causes the magma to become more dense, and then it falls back down to the core again. So we get this cycle of events. Now, at plate boundaries, this is where we're going to get most of the activities that we know of: earthquakes, volcanoes, and mid-ocean ridges. Now, when we've got two ocean plates coming together, what we find is, or being pulled apart, what we find is, if we look on this diagram that we've got here, we've got the ocean crust pushing out to the left, and then we've got another oceanic crust pushing out to the right. And you can see the cursor here, which I'm just moving around, showing the two oceanic crusts. One's going to move this way, one's going to move this way. As a result, a gap opens up. Now, at that gap, the magma, the hot magma, is going to spill out. Now, the trouble is, this is underneath the ocean here. Now, because the ocean is incredibly cold, especially deep down, and we're talking, thousands of meters down possibly, you could have this this gap forming. It's incredibly cold. So what happens is the magma then forms a cap. It freezes almost and cools incredibly quickly. So what we get is this ridge of this spilled out lava, which forms all the way along the where the plate boundaries are. Now, the main plate boundary that we have is the Atlantic Ocean. That's one of the biggest. And what we find is that as the plate moves apart, what we also get at other areas, that's where we'll get the plate slipping underneath. Now, the oceanic crust here you can see is slipping underneath, and this is what we call a subduction zone. Now, the subduction zone will cause the magma to actually melt. Okay, so we get a mid-ocean ridge, and then we get a subduction zone on the other side. Now, here you can see the map, two maps. One is just a normal map that we're looking at, and this one here on the right-hand side is a topological map. And you can see the mid-ocean ridge running all the way down between South America and Africa. Okay, now this is the Atlantic Ocean, here and here. And you notice that there is a small country right at the top here. This is Iceland. Now, this small country here basically actually has the mid-Atlantic ridge running right through the middle of it, and we'll look at that later on. Now, what we'll notice is that the Atlantic Ocean is actually getting bigger. Why? Well, we've got the African plate moving this way, we've got the South American and the North American plate moving in this direction. So South America and Africa are actually getting further apart, which means that the Atlantic Ocean is getting bigger. Now, on the other side of the coin, you've got to say, well, if that's getting bigger, something's got to be getting smaller. Well, that's true. On the other side of the world, we've got the Pacific Ocean. So the Pacific Ocean is actually getting smaller. So this just gives you an indication of the ridge that is actually formed. Now, this is the photo on the right-hand side actually shows the actual ridge when it comes up onto land in Iceland. And you can see what we've got here is water is actually filling this crack between the two plates. So this part of the country and this part of the country are actually on two different plates. The result is they're actually getting further and further apart, and water is just spilling in between them. Because of the contour of the continental plate, it just happens to rise at that point. Now, it doesn't look particularly active here, but if we go further down and if we were to follow this rift further out, we get what we call black smokers. Now, black smokers basically are water which is actually cooled by large chimneys, and what happens is it carries up with it a lot of minerals, and those minerals come off as this black smoke. And if you go down, if you go diving, or if you watch any video that you can see, there's plenty on YouTube I'll try and find some and put some on the course. You'll see these black smokers where they'll actually generate superheated water, which actually rises up to the surface, and the result is it carries these minerals. So it looks like smoke coming up, but it actually isn't. It's down to minerals. So this shows the activity of the magma coming close up to the surface of the Earth. Now, if you know anything about Iceland, Iceland is very volcanic, and you'll find that you get lots of geothermal areas due to the close vicinity to the plates and the superheated magma. Okay, now also what you'll find as you go further down is you'll get these lava pillows. Now you can see these lava pillows in the pictures here. Now this is what's happened when the lava comes up through the cracks, and it's super cooled on the outside, so it almost forms a shell around the outside and then forms into rock, and the result is it falls over to the side. And what you get is these lumps of magma which are cooled on the outside, and then they take a bit of it's slower to cool on the inside, and they're called lava pillows. So the outside cools really, really quickly, and then the inside is not so quick. But you get these globular shapes, and that basically is the new crust which is formed. So when we get two oceanic plates which are moving apart, we're going to get this mid-ocean ridge, we're going to get new crust which is going to be formed, we get supercooling, and the result is those continents will move further apart. And as a result, the ocean, the water, will just spill in and fill that up. It's not down to global warming, because obviously if one side fills up, the other side is going to get smaller, so that water just moves into another area, and that may be the reason behind some of the Atlantic currents and all those sorts of things. Okay, so I hope you understand how oceanic plates work when they're moving apart. Join me again and we'll look at another situation where we've got plate movement. Thank you for watching.